When you're approaching the chance to buy that new home, to finish off this home buying process that you've been working on, but you're not really sure when to lock in your rate. Could it be better the days ahead and the months ahead? What about a lot of the uncertainty, the tariff chatter that's happening? Is it better to go ahead and lock it in now before things can become a little more uncertain? We'll talk about the best timeline and how Bill and his team at Cross Country Mortgage help out their customers and when to determine the best time to lock in their rate. Welcome into the Smart Mortgage Show. I'm Ben George. He is Bill Litton. He is Regional President at Cross Country Mortgage. They have their office there in Chaddsford, Pennsylvania. And Bill, today, going to talk a little bit about locking in a rate. I don't think we've talked about this. We've covered a lot of different topics here over the course of the channel, so please subscribe if you haven't done that already. But locking in the rates, and this is an interesting one because I saw something the other day about, there's a lot going on in the world. We provide our market updates and a lot of the uncertainty you're watching. When is the best time to lock it in? So kind of want to walk through that process with you. And does it actually matter when you're going through it?
Yeah, I would say yes, it matters. And you definitely want to work with somebody who understands the best strategy. So it'd be a good question to ask any lender that you're talking to. Hey, what is your strategy for when do I lock in my interest rate? There's a few different important considerations. And one of them is just how long until we go to settlement. So the normal lock term is 60 days. Anything within 60 days, you essentially get the same interest rate. If you're greater than 60 days, you might need to pay a long-term lock fee to lock out further than that. So if you're within 60 days, and I would say probably 90% of all settlements are within 60 days, so most scenarios are going to fall in this category, we are of the mindset that we have a very generous float down policy. Okay, what that means is if I lock in your rate today and interest rates go up, you're protected. You've locked in. Your rate cannot increase. No matter where the market goes. But if the market gets better by a specific margin, and what that means is if the rates get lower by the smallest margin, they're not going to do anything for us. Okay, 1/8%, they're not going to do anything for us. But 1/4% or more decrease in the general market compared to where we locked, and then we can exercise a float down, which means we can actually renegotiate the rate to a lower interest rate and take advantage of that lower interest rate. So the way we look at it is if you're within 60 days and you lock the rate, you've got a 50-50 chance of the rates coming up or down, right? So let's eliminate the chance that rates could go up, take that 50% rate off the table. Well, now we do have an opportunity that if rates come down and they come down by that certain margin, that we can actually get you a lower rate. So there's no higher rate risk, but there's a potential that you could even get a lower interest rate. So we utilize that strategy most of the time.
Yeah, that seems like the most beneficial approach for anyone. I'm curious though, and for anyone that's maybe not as versed in this area and just doesn't go through the process, which is a lot of people, Bill, that are buying a home. Why do you even have to lock in the rate? Why isn't it just something that, hey, as you get to the closing table, all right, here's our rate, let's lock it up now because we're here now. Why do you have to lock it up so early?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I actually believe if you don't have a locked rate, you don't have a loan. And the reason for that is we've seen over the years many wild swings in the market. There's a lot of turbulence in the market. Let's just say that you get under contract. You're borrowing, a common loan amount these days is $500,000, and the rate goes from 6% to 7.5%. I've not calculated this, but let's just say the payment goes up $500 a month. You might not qualify anymore. So now you're under contract to buy a house that you don't qualify for anymore because the market took you out of the game. The debt ratio is now too high. Your payment is over the limit. Let's say you do qualify, but now that house is not in your budget because the rate went up so much. So when you sign a real estate contract and you've agreed to all of the terms within that contract to buy the house, it's also based on your ability to qualify for the mortgage and afford and have it in your budget. And there's actually a little interest rate spread in the contract that says, if the rate goes up a certain amount, you still have to buy the house. But if you don't lock in and it goes outside of that, certainly at that point you would be able to, break the contract because of that. But imagine the amount of real estate transactions that could get derailed because of that. So it's creating certainty in the process. You're locked in, you know what your rates are, you know what your payments are. And again, if you play the law of averages, it's the safer thing to do from an economic standpoint.
So just in most, I know how it is, obviously you can kind of speak to how it is in your office at Cross Country Mortgage, but just in general, is this something that the buyer should be kind of expected to tell the loan officer yourself, or is this something that you're going to help them out? Okay, it's time to lock in the mortgage, as opposed to saying, okay, Bill, I'm a little nervous about tariffs. Let's go ahead and lock it in now.
It's interesting because people are, I would say, a little bit, they're well informed. And I think that people have really good ideas and thoughts, and they're watching things, and they might say, hey, what are these tariffs going to do to the rates? But really what we're going to do is, as soon as you're under contract, we're going to call you and talk about the strategy. Now, ultimately, it is the customer's choice. They can decide not to lock in, and they don't have to. There's no law that says they have to. But 99% of the time, once we explain the float down option, they do lock in because it's the best chance of them getting the best interest rate. So, to your point, since the tariffs have been affecting the market, we've actually seen some, interest rates come up a bit, come down a bit. It's hard to read how the tariffs are going to affect it. We've still had the same stance. I believe we've still gotten the best result. Now, there is one scenario where we may play the market if we're within that 60 days. So we subscribe to 3 advisory services that try to give us a little bit of an edge on where the market's headed. I like to joke around and say they're right about 51% of the time, which is a slight edge. But if all 3 of our advisors are really bullish on the fact that rates are coming down in the next 30 days, we might ride the market out in that situation and not lock in right away. Other than that, though, if we don't have a consensus among the experts, we're locking in.
But still, wouldn't you still want to lock in anyway if you could still float it down if it did change?
It's a great question. So I would say 99% of the time, the answer to that is yes. But the only little caveat is if you lock in and let's say the rates come down 1/8%, the float down won't allow you to come down 1/8. It's got to be greater than 1/8. So if you didn't lock in and rates went down by 1/8, you could take advantage of that very small difference.
Gotcha.
So to your point too, like when there's a consensus and we have this conversation, hey, I've got a consensus here, but we're expecting a big drop, you're going to be able to float down. There's a really strong chance it'll be enough to float down. So we can lock in and we're still really good chance we're going to be within that float down margin.
Hope that gives you a little better perspective on how the lock-in of the rate works and when you want to do that, and the timeline for that. But again, this is where working with a good mortgage team will really help you out and help benefit you. Make that process clear. I think that's the biggest thing, is make sure you understand how it's working, why it's working, and the best process moving forward. So if you want to get in touch with Cross Country Mortgage, Bill Litton and his team there, please do so. Text the word LEND to 21,000. Again, LEND to 21,000. You can schedule that time to take advantage of that first initial free 15 to 20 minute mortgage and loan consultation to talk through some of your concerns, where you stand, what you're looking for, and they'll help you find the best option, even if it's not with them. But hopefully you've learned a little bit from this video. If you have, please subscribe. We'll have more coming. And Bill, we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ben. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
This program is for informational purposes only. Please consult a qualified professional before taking any action. Bill Litton is a loan advisor and regional president with Cross Country Mortgage, NMLS number 147060.